Okay, thanks for your patience, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. So welcome presenters and members of the public. You are at the monthly meeting of Manhattan Community Board 5's Transportation and Environment Committee. I'm the chair, E.J. Kalifarski, and we have one item on our agenda tonight. It is a presentation by the Grand Central Terminal Train Shed Rehabilitation Project team. So without further ado, welcome to the presenters, and we'll go ahead and turn things over to you. Luke, do you have any Zoom instructions before we get started?
Nope, just you can share your screen with the green button at the bottom and then let us know if you have any technical difficulties.
Great, I'll share my screen now.
All right, I'd like to do some introductions first and then turn it over to the project program management team. My name is Michael Feinberg. I'm with MTA Metro North. I'm Director, Tunnels, Bridges, and Track in the Capital Programs Department. And with me from Metro North is Mark Mannix, Senior Director, Corporate and Public Affairs. Tanya Kokorina, Senior Structural Engineer. She's also the project manager for the train shed project. And also joining us is Ziona Rubin, Vice President, Capital Programs, MTA Metro North Railroad. As you may know, we're all being transitioned into the MTA C&D department, but we still call ourselves Metro North. And next, I'd like to introduce Leslie Black. She's Director of Community Engagement Services for the firm of Fitzgerald and Halliday, Inc. And she's going to sort of MC this presentation. And Fitzgerald and Halliday are in turn sub to HNTB, our program manager consultant. And as you can see, Sean Daly is on this line and he will do the majority of the presentation. And I sort of pitch in with hopefully relevant comments during the show. So Leslie, it's your turn.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike, very much. Thank you, everybody, for having us join your agenda this evening. We greatly appreciate making the presentation to Community Board 5. And we're here this evening to present the Grand Central Terminal Train Shed Rehabilitation Program and provide you with some information and answer any questions that you may have. So we'll move through to our next slide, please. Thank you. This is just a presentation overview. We will be covering the sectors that are currently underway, as well as priority repairs. We'll discuss Park Avenue malls, the overarching program schedule, construction mitigation, and next steps. And now I will turn it over, I believe, to Sean Daly.
Well,
Or sorry, Desiree is.
right ahead, Desiree.
Sure. Yep. Thanks,
Sorry.
Leslie.
Yes.
So good evening, Community Board 5. My name is Desiree Gazzo. I'm working with Sean Daly from HNTB. Again, as Mike said, the program managers for this project. So I'm going to take you through the first couple of slides here to give you kind of a sense of place where we are. And then I'm going to hand it over to Sean to go into a little bit more detail of the project specifics. So as you can see here, the Grand Central Terminal train shed boundary is in the yellow. The southernmost limits are Grand Central Terminal at 43rd Street. To the west, Madison Avenue; to the east, Lexington Avenue, and then it tapers down along Park Avenue to East 57th Street. Next slide. So here's kind of a section through Park Avenue. The train shed, which we just showed the yellow outline for, is the image below, and that's, if you're a commuter, you should be very used to this image below. If you're not so much, then you know the picture above is more of what you're used to seeing: the streets, the roadways, the Park Avenue Mall, and the hustle and bustle of New York. When underground, there's this whole network of all the trains and tracks in the Metro North train shed. Next slide, please. So here's a quick little illustrative of where we are today to the left and the existing conditions. So right now the roof structure and the membrane is not in the best of shape, and it's allowing the water from stormwater and etc. to get down into the train shed below. And the train shed is typically a building, and it's in this case kind of a roof structure that protects the tracks and the trains. And this train shed is one of Metro North's most important assets. So here's a quick infographic of an overview of the train shed. Grand Central is the world's largest train shed with 44 platform tracks and over 67 tracks. Every day, over 750,000 people pass through Grand Central Terminal, and morning rush hour trains arrive at the platform every 58 seconds. The Grand Central Terminal is 30 acres, so that yellow area that we showed on the first slide is about 30 acres, and the Park Avenue Malls is 1 acre of that. So this is just to show you the complexity and the amount of people and stakeholders that we are dealing with as we go through this project. So I'm going to hand it over to Sean, and he's going to tell you a little bit more of the details.
Thank you, Desiree. So as you can see here, our program intent is we have a general failure of the waterproofing membrane, and we have not had any opportunity to replace a waterproofing membrane for over 100 years. And as you can see by some of the pictures that we're showing here, just how severe some of the corrosion is. And not only is it the failure of the waterproofing, but also the punctures over time, bringing new utilities for different reasons over time, and having all these holes in addition to the water infiltration has led to where we are now. Next slide, please. Again, just more up close, you can see how close the deterioration is to street level right here, and just some more illustration of the severity of the corrosion. Next slide, please. Now you can see here from 1984 through 2012, there had been a total of 5 separate priority repair programs. Basically, the intent of the priority repair program is to identify the most critical areas in need of repair. And over the course of many years, we have implemented these priority repair programs. However, you can see clearly from this picture that we can no longer keep up with the rate of deterioration, and something more aggressive needed to be undertaken. And here you can see what the bigger picture proposal is. On this illustration, you can see where we have identified 2 sectors. To date, we have identified a total of 11 sectors that makes up the entire train shed. We're going to be talking about the first 2 sectors this evening. Also, you can see priority repair number 6 identified there. That is one of many areas that we are currently fixing under our current priority repair program. That's just the largest one, and actually you can actually see it now. If you walk out on the street at 48th and Park Avenue, you can actually see our progress. I want to talk a little bit about Sector 1 and the differences between 1 and 2. You can clearly see that Sector 1 only goes halfway across the train shed at this location from on the west side of Park Avenue and the west portion of 48th and 47th Street. The intent is to do this work in conjunction with the 270 Park Avenue redevelopment, which is currently underway. Sector 2, which is from 53rd through 55th Street, the major difference here being that the train shed spans across the entire length of Park Avenue. So any betterments or upgrades that we are proposing at Sector 2 location, we will be able to complete in the 1 construction phase. Sector 1, we will be able to do half, basically from the Madison over to the center line of Park Avenue, and then revisit the sector to the east when we are in that capital program. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Just as here's just a view, a bigger view. You can see of the viaduct which surrounds the 270 Park Avenue redevelopment. And again, the intent is to work with the schedule for the 270 Park Avenue redevelopment schedule and try to maximize efficiency with the work that's going to be done underground. Next slide, please. Here you can just see a 3D rendering to give the neighborhood a sense of just how close we are to the work. Significant difference here between, say, the 2nd Avenue subway. We do not have to do any major excavation. We do not have to do any building underpinning. Basically, we are replacing a bridge. So our intent is to get as much work done below grade before we impact the above grade everyday life of the people who are affected by this work. Next slide, please. Here you can see a typical section looking north at the Sector 1 location. You can see that we have 2 layers, the upper layer and the lower level of the train shed, and then followed by the street above. And you can clearly see that the viaduct roof, which you saw by the earlier photos, that it's in severe condition, and it is supporting not only the people, but the cars, and obviously it needs to be maintained to allow for train operations to continue unimpeded. Next slide, please. Here's a quick look at the Sector 2 where we discussed before. Again, it's from 53rd through the 55th Street. And again, just another look that all of the work that is being proposed here at Sector 2 will again traverse the entire width of the train shed. So whatever we propose, we'll be able to complete from one side to the other in that same construction phase. Next slide, please. Again, just another cutaway. And it's worth pointing out here in the Sector 2, you can see somewhere in the center of the screen where the train and track F starts to descend down to the lower level here at the 53rd through 55th Street station. This gives you a sense of where the trains start to make their descent down to the lower level. Again, just a typical section through the Sector 2 location. Again, we're going from one side of Park Avenue to the other. Some points worth noting, you can see at that center span, where the individual stringers are some 55.5 feet long. So rather large pieces of steel that we need to deal with during construction, and part of which will be to have rediversion of the traffic flows to allow us to get access to areas and be able to replace steel from column line to column line. Next slide, please. Here is a view of the priority repairs. One of the defects that are ongoing. It's the largest defect that we're dealing with now. And you can see right now that the contractor is on site and working, and we are making good progress. And you can see this is basically a small window or picture of what the big picture will be, but it'll give everyone a sense of what is going to be taking place with the larger sector work. Next slide, please. Here you can just see the phasing and staging that's involved for this particular work. So we're showing how we're diverting traffic temporarily to do our work, as well as diverting the pedestrian flow to do our work. The same principle will be taking place for the sector work, just at a larger scale. And of course, we will be seeking approval from New York City Department of Transportation before we proceed with any of that work. Here you just get to see a snapshot of some of the work that we are doing right now with the Priority Repair 6 program. You can see here where we're replacing some of our expansion joints. Again, just trying to work with some of the water that's infiltrating the train shed, amongst other repairs that we will be doing for the Priority Repair program. Okay, just a quick look at what we're looking at with the malls. We understand that the malls are going to be dismantled to allow for us to do our reconstruction of the viaduct roof. And we are now working closely with New York City DOT, as well as the Mayor's Office Capital Project Development Team. We're listening closely with them and working with them to figure out what ultimately they are going to decide to put in that space. And ideally, we will be able to allow for the designer of our viaduct to incorporate all those final revisions that will be are being proposed, or considered, I should say. Here is just a quick org chart. Look at what's going on here are the present contracts that are underway for the program. Right now, we have sector one. Yes. Right now, we're working on Sector 1. We are in the design for Sector 1. We have Sector 2. Right now, we are presently in design of that as well. And I have a graphic showing the schedule in the next couple of slides. I think that'll spell out the schedule a little more clearly. Sector 2, we will have first phase is design. The second phase will be a design build team, which won't take place until the next capital program. And then we have the priority repairs, which are presently ongoing. And HNTB is the go-between between all of those entities and all of the third-party stakeholders. And as you can see, all of the state and local governments, city agencies, we have dealt with all of them to date. This is our first meeting with Community Board 5. We have a meeting with Community Board 6 on September 29th, where we will be giving this presentation as well. We're working closely with all of the buildings that are affected by this work, and we'll continue to do so throughout the life of the program. Here you can see a big snapshot of the schedule. So if you see that the priority repairs number 6, we are ongoing and we're in construction and will be through the remainder of 2021. Sector 1, we are finishing up the design now. We have a phase A and a phase B. Phase A design is intended to do the sub-grade work, mainly the columns and girder restoration and reinforcement. And then the, I skipped over that. That's the construction. I'm breaking out the construction of Sector 1. Phase A construction for Sector 1 is below grade, the columns and girders. That will take place from 2021 through 2022. The intent here is to do all of the heavy lifting, if you will, on the subgrade work so that in 2022, when we actually remove the deck, the sidewalks, and the stringers, that we have all our preparation work below already performed with a minimal impact on the street above. That's the intent there. Sector 2, we are presently in the phase 1 design, which will bring us to a 60% design. And then the construction will not take place until the next capital program, and that will be sometime in 2025. The outreach activities, you can see all elected officials that we are dealing with. We have been on a regular basis. We have continual stakeholder meetings. We have recently developed a website, and we look forward to having more interaction with the public with that website. And again, we will have notifications throughout the life of the program. And I think I'm going to pass this off to Leslie now.
Yes, thanks, Sean. Okay, so we'd just like to discuss a little bit further the outreach elements and the construction recommended mitigation elements as well. Next slide, please. With respect to community outreach and coordination, as you saw from the schedule, this will be conducted throughout the program. We'll be providing program updates through fact sheets and newsletters. We do have a project email contact developed, which we'll share with you at the end of this presentation. As Sean noted, we are developing a website. We are still in draft development, and that will be launched shortly, and we will share that information with you as well. Due to COVID-19, of course, our in-person events are on hold for now. However, we do share information electronically, and we're conducting our meetings virtually. So we are following through with these elements as best we can virtually. Next slide, please. So with respect to construction coordination, we just wanted to provide you with an update because you live and work here with respect to the different accessibility and all of the pieces of information that go into helping you get around as construction goes on. So with respect to access, sidewalks will certainly still be available and buildings will remain accessible, and we will install temporary sidewalks and overhead protection in place around construction, and these elements will be dynamic and will shift as work progresses. Delivery access to buildings, of course, is very important as well, and that will be maintained as whenever possible. Signage to help you get around the area will be put in place so that people can find directions very easily in terms of navigating. And with respect to timing of work, most of scheduled work will typically occur during nights and weekends. Daytime work will only be performed with special permissions so that we can keep disruptions to a minimum. Next slide, please. With respect to dust mitigation and noise mitigation, construction equipment, and our site safety plans, we are working in compliance with the New York City codes and also in following, incorporating required safety rules and COVID guidelines. So for all of those elements, we're in compliance. Next slide, please. And we are coordinating, as Sean indicated, with both our utility and our non-utility stakeholders. And this coordination will be ongoing. We're currently working with agencies to ensure infrastructure advancements are in line with neighborhood rezoning. And with respect to building owner coordination, we are meeting with building owners on a regular basis to provide updates. And I believe Sean walked through many of the elements with respect to no pilings and underpinnings, sidewalk advancements, and business access. Next slide, please. And site restoration. And once we are done, we're turning things back to what they were with respect to in-kind or enhanced site restoration. And all of the elements will be taken into consideration, including sidewalk finishes, landscape, street furniture, roadways and curbs, crosswalks and striping, pedestrian crossing signals, and of course, lighting and signage. Next slide, please. So just in conclusion, here is the email address with respect to reaching out to us after this presentation is over. If you just have general questions or comments, you can reach the project team at info@gcttrainshed.com, and we will provide the website address as soon as it is launched. And I believe that is our presentation. We'd like to open it to questions and comments.
Great, thanks very much. I have a couple questions off the bat, and then I'll of course open it up to members of the committee to ask questions, and then after that we'll give members of the public who are in attendance the opportunity to ask questions as well. Just real quickly right off the bat, wondering initially whether or not did COVID change your time frame for this project at all, or was it always essentially the 10-year span that you showed on that schedule?
Sean, would you like to take that?
Sure. The overall larger schedule for the Sector 1 and Sector 2, it did not. The starting of the actual work for priority repairs number 6, it had some delays, but we are making that time back presently in the 2-year construction window for priority 6. But we're still maintaining our Sector 1 schedule to have the design complete this year and have the contract awarded at the end of this year for Sector 1.
Okay, thank you. So you talked a lot about, the fact that you're going to maintain as much sidewalk and traffic access as possible, even when the surface streets need to be ripped up. The diagrams that you showed seem to be mainly focused on working on, say, half of the street and retaining at least a couple lanes of traffic at the same time, and then flip-flopping. Are there going to be situations where a block of Park Avenue will be totally closed off, or is the intention to always maintain through traffic access for Park Avenue throughout the entirety of the project?
We are intending to maintain traffic, both vehicular and pedestrian, throughout the life of the program. We have broken the Sector 1 work into more stages, which are not shown here. They are still will be submitted in conjunction with maintenance and protection of traffic drawings that we need to submit to New York City DOT for approval of those movements of vehicles and pedestrians. So basically our movement of cars and people is linked to how we see the construction taking place. That all needs to be pre-approved by DOT. Once we have that approval, we can then share that staging with the public more, because right now it's subject to potential change based on results of our meetings with the DOT.
Do you know when that is likely to be approved or finalized?
We are starting that process very soon. We've done a final traffic analysis that will require some rerouting of the traffic away from the work zone, and we will be submitting that analysis to DOT shortly. So their analysts will have an ability to take a good look at what we're proposing, so that when we do present more graphically, they will understand what's going on behind the scenes and the numbers that back it up.
They're not unaware of the projects coming forward. We've been in communications with them for several years.
Got it. Thank you. My last question is about the restoration period. You're obviously, the project is broken down into the stages as you described, and you talked about the medians being restored to in-kind or enhanced status by the end of the project. Is that going to happen on a rolling basis as each stage is completed, or is it likely that aesthetic landscaping and pedestrian access at the end will happen all at once in a final stage?
The intent is to, when we do visit a sector and have a mall that is affected, the intent is to do the mall once. Since this is the pilot, we are working closely with DOT and the mayor's office regarding what that final layout will be on this particular mall. This particular mall at 47th and 48th will be reconstructed. Depending on the final schedule of sectors, individual malls that are impacted by that sector will be reconstructed at the end of that sector work. Also, there is some overlap when it comes to one sector adjacent to the next, either to the north or the south. In order to divert traffic, you have to partially remove some of those malls in order to divert the traffic in the areas that you're working. All of that has been taken into consideration when we do our final sector configuration. But the intent is, as we proceed with a sector per every several years, that if a mall is being impacted with new construction, a new mall will be placed on top of the new viaduct.
Okay. Thank you. Those were my questions. At this point, I'd like to open it up to members of the committee. If you have a question, feel free to raise hand, and we'll call on folks. Not currently seeing any. Oh, there we go. Ryan Whalen.
Thank you to the team for the presentation. Very informative. Of the 30 acres that are in the train shed, obviously a majority of that is not covered by the work that you're doing here. And so I'm just curious, how would you characterize the condition of the rest of the shed? And is your sense that sort of the normal and routine maintenance will keep it in good repair? Or is it something where the condition of some portion of it could bring a project like this to bear for other portions of the train shed in the future?
Well, the train shed that is exposed to the sidewalks in the street are definitely getting more impact from water infiltration and calcium chloride for de-icing. The buildings themselves actually allow significant protection for the train shed directly below them. So there's a whole nother layer of protection that is afforded to the train shed by the building. So right now, our program is exclusive to the streets and sidewalks.
If I may, if your question is with regard to the private buildings as to how well they maintain themselves, some are better than others.
Okay.
Thank you.
Noah.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. My question is about current and past Metro North delays. Has there been any major delays in the past months, years that's kind of prompted or sped up this project?
Mike, I think I'll let you take that one.
I've been with the railroad many years, 36 if you must know. We've done a series of repair projects, now dubbed the priority repairs, since the mid-1990s. And prompted by the condition photos that you saw earlier in the slide presentation. And that's happening throughout the place. We've been working with the budgets that are available from the MTA. But what happened is that about a dozen years ago, we started to suspect that we were not keeping up with the level of deterioration that was ongoing. And that was why you saw the slide that showed from 1984 to about 2012, when we did the last full inspection of the place. You saw the increasing number of red dots on there showing where there were major areas of concern. And it was apparent that our rather piecemeal approach to priority repairs, and by the way, we're doing another priority repair project now, as Sean pointed out, we were not keeping up with the level of deterioration. So the decision was made that if in the current capital program, which is 20 to 24, and then in future capital programs, that we would start to undertake a significant replacement of portions of the roof, which we've dubbed those sectors, for lack of a better name. Sector 1 just so happens to be coincident with the work on the replacement of the office building at 270 Park, because we wanted to get all the construction done in that vicinity at one time. Chase Bank, which owns a building, was eager to address it at the same time, and so we're working in concert with Chase Bank. Sector 2, the next area we've chosen, also is well, all the areas are in need of repair. It was chosen because of the location over the 10-track area between 53rd and 55th. Takes care of that. The other sectors have yet to be actually selected. It depends, frankly, on the sort of budgets we're given by the MTA and the need. All the areas eventually need to be done. Our intention is a complete replacement eventually of the entire roof of Grand Central, which would be Park Avenue from 46th to 57th Street. 45th Street would be its own project, plus all the cross streets from 46th Street to 57th. Obviously, it gets less area as you go north because the train shed tapers down. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Great, thanks. While we're on the topic, you mentioned coordination with the redevelopment of 270, which is obviously very good to be taking advantage of that and making sure the coordination is happening. Are the transit improvements that are that are being built as part of the 270 redevelopment, is that associated with the train shed work that you're doing? Are they incorporated into this project, or are they off of the site region that you showed?
Partially. There is going to be, they're reworking the escalator bank on 47th Street and Madison Avenue. There's going to be a second escalator added over there to the one that's already in place. And there'll be the stairwell that's currently there will be relocated further south into the sidewalk area. So that's being addressed partially by the train shed. There's a lot of other work that's more tied in with the East Side Access Project that's been ongoing for quite a while, and then 270 itself. There's improvements that the Chase Bank has agreed to make within their own footprint.
Okay, thank you. Joel.
Two quick questions. The first is, you mentioned that all the work, or to the extent possible, is going to be scheduled as nighttime work. There's at least one residential apartment building within this area. You actually had a photograph showing 417 Park. Is there any accommodation going to be made for those, for when work is done outside the residential building, to not do it at night?
Well, to answer that question, 417 Park Avenue is located in Sector 2. And Sector 2 construction does not take place until on or around 2025. And that building is presently being sold. So it may be moot at that point.
In fact, it has been sold.
Has been sold.
Does Sector 2 end at 57th Street?
55th, at the 55th Street, through the entire 55th Street intersection.
Okay. Okay, so that's not, because there are more residential buildings starting at 57th, but you're saying that's outside the scope.
Yes.
At the moment.
Has any, you did mention coordinating with DOT. I'm wondering if any thought has been given to coordinating with DOT about potential streetscape changes that are going on all throughout Midtown, in terms of whether they've thought about possible sidewalk widenings, new street uses and lane closures and things like that as part of this, or is that just to come later?
Currently, that is under review, and I believe that we do have a DOT representative on board tonight who may want to add a few words. Jennifer, if you're available.
Sure. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Santinez. I'm the Manhattan Deputy Borough Commissioner at the Manhattan DOT office. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, EJ and Luke, for having me. As Sean had mentioned, we've been working very closely with Mike, Desiree, Sean, and the whole team on this incredible opportunity to kind of rebuild and reconstruct what's going back in the Grand Central, or what's going above the Grand Central Terminal train shed, and above ground improvements. And so, Joel, to answer your question, you had mentioned sidewalk widening. That concept was part of, a larger discussion. We're looking at just general pedestrian, bicycle, all types of above ground improvements. If there's any particular thing that, you're looking for us to review, please, contact us and have the board contact us. But we're certainly looking at a district-wide type of, enhancement here.
Jennifer, so, 10 years is a long time, obviously, and street needs could change over that time. At what point do you believe would the final design of the street level configuration of Park Avenue be finalized, or is there flexibility here for it to be determined based on, conditions in 5 years?
EJ, I think that's a good question. This is a long-term project. I don't have a direct answer for you just yet, but we are looking to continue the discussion with the community and, really hear what's needed and what you're all looking for here as we rebuild the malls on Park Avenue.
Got it. Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the committee? Okay. At this point, we'll open it up to any questions from members of the public who are in attendance. Please feel free to use the raise hand function as well.
I should note that if you're joining from a phone, you can press *9 to indicate that you'd like to speak.
We have one question from a user identified only as CN.
Okay, CN.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello. Yes, so I'm hoping that with this redevelopment, maybe the DOT could consider the audio pedestrian signals for people like myself who are blind, who love to be independent, try to walk around the city. I'm hoping that maybe this could be an opportunity to add some more, especially on Park Avenue, which is a 2-lane, very busy thoroughfare. It would be great if that could be considered, and maybe in other future MTA projects around the city, maybe some more audio pedestrian signals for the blind.
Thanks for the question. Could you just share your name also as well?
Oh yeah, CN.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jennifer, would you like to, or the project team?
Sure. We've been dealing with New York City DOT Traffic Signal Department, and I'm happy to inform that, yes, that is a part of the Sector 1 and all future sector work, that we will be incorporating such signalization. So the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. There's a question from a phone number, area code 973.
Okay, actually, you'll have to press *6 to unmute. Go ahead.
Hey, EJ, it's Zach Behar. I just wanted to let you know that I'm on the call. I was just only able to join as an attendee, so I just wanted to say hi. I'm on.
All right, Zach, great, thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the public? There are a couple questions that went into the chat that I suppose we could address. One is would the rules or status of heavy trucks and heavy vehicles on Park Avenue, is that going to change as a result of any of the work? And would that further protect the train shed from deterioration, or is that not a factor?
The viaduct is being designed to handle all loading for vehicle traffic and truck traffic. But to go a step further and say what any reductions in traffic, I don't believe we're able to answer that. I think that's a question for DOT, but certainly structurally, the new viaduct structure will be able to withstand any loading according to code.
We have to bring it up to legal load requirements from the code, which would be heavy vehicles.
So its capacity will be strengthened as a result of the project.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. As a potentially final question, I was wondering if you could summarize at this point. You know, you showed a slide of dots for 10 years. You know, ongoing engagement. I'm wondering if you could talk about specifically the next steps of engagement and continuing to get feedback from the community, and if you are looking for any specific type of support either now or in the future.
Well, what we're looking to do first and foremost is to inform. So we understand that it's going to impact people's lives, and we're looking to listen. You know, again, the plan of attack is to do as much as we can below grade so that we minimize the impact above grade. Long term, we realize that there's quite a few sectors, and ultimately to say how many sectors out into the future we can forecast 15 and 20 years is a difficult, if not fruitless assignment. So we're right now, we have a 10-year outlook as far as sector 1 and sector 2. We're looking to incorporate all of the final betterments that DOT is proposing for the malls. And of course, we're looking to speak and listen to the building owners, and not only the owners, but also the tenants inside the buildings who may not have the opportunity to be updated. And we look forward to continuing our public outreach throughout the life of the program.
Will there be a feedback mechanism on that website when it goes live?
Yes, there will.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there any other questions at all from members of the public, or any other questions by members of the committee? Seeing none, that would seem to wrap up any questions that we have for you. I don't know if you have anything else to say in summary, but obviously we appreciate you taking the time to come before us and present to explain what's going to be a obvious part of our lives for a decade. But
This has to ask about Christmas displays. That's not a Metro North decision. That's the Parks Department and Fund for Park Avenue take care of that. But I don't imagine that will be affected by this. Obviously, in the region immediately under construction, it will be. But the areas to the north and south will not be affected.
Okay, thanks very much.
And I would say one other point is that obviously a project this size is liable to change as we go on. So what we're looking to do is maintain this spirit of cooperation and communication, and hopefully we'll have opportunity to present to you again in the near future.
That's what I was going to, obviously you're going to Community Board 5 and Community Board 6, you said, this week. Yeah, I was curious when you may anticipate coming back periodically to provide updates, or whether it would be as needed.
We can certainly, have some feedback back and forth, and also, the milestones aren't set in timelines. Things tend to fluctuate. If we believe that something is immediately in need of sharing, we will certainly do so. But I think it's also a good idea to have some sort of regular interval that we do meet. We hear new concerns that you may have. We can give you any updates that we have discovered. And again, just look forward to keeping this communication line open.
Yep, we appreciate that, and we appreciate your willingness to come back to us when there's news to share, and just periodically to make sure that that channel stays open. And obviously, as the work takes place, there will probably be more specific feedback and responses to the effects of the construction.
No doubt.
We appreciate that very much. With that, if that concludes the presentation, we thank you very much for coming before us. And that was our only agenda item of the evening for the committee's business.
We thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thanks very much. And thank you, Jennifer, for joining as well.
Of course. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
That concludes our committee meeting. So thanks very much for everyone who attended, and have an excellent night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.